What is it about a text that makes it sacred or holy or revered? Cynthia?
Well, I think it's a mutual feedback loop in a way that since the texts have been a grounding and a centering for a tradition and have proved themselves valid and proved themselves rediscovered and honored and revered within the tradition, people bring their energy of faith, of devotion, of creativity to it, and it becomes more and more of a stream through which a river of human yearning and aspiration and desiring flows. As a Christian, of course, my classic sacred texts are the Bible in whatever version we happen to have, but people are finding living water in the Gospel of Thomas. I would say that probably more Christians are reading Rumi nowadays than are reading the canonical New Testament. Dylan Thomas, Gerard Manley Hopkins, I think it's an ongoing living dynamic, and I think it's wrong to think when you have sacred texts that it's something frozen and locked in a book that can't move.
How does that relate to what we might regard as sacred or holy or revered text, or what you recently
I think those are nice words to use, but I think they're highly inappropriate, I should say. For example, I'm most familiar with, the Gnostics and the Hebrew Bible and the Greek Scriptures. Okay. The Greek Scriptures, which I spent so many years translating, none of that was written as sacred texts, or they were just letters from Paul that became revered because Paul founded Christianity more than anybody else. What do we have in the Gospels? We have the poetry is largely from what Jesus is supposed to be saying. And it's wisdom speech, because that was the only way he could speak. Marvelously. That was the only way he could speak. He spoke wisdom verse. Everything was, now you can call that holy, but I think that was simply talking to the people. Now, we revere it, and therefore to us we add very pleasantly, subjectively, that this has been chosen. They are the chosen. But is any verse from Homer less sacred? That was the Bible of the Greeks. How about Sappho? There's not a poem by Sappho which does not have a god in it. But we don't consider that holy verse. I think those words are very relative. Other people's miracles we call fantasy. Our own we consider history.
Yeah.
Ken,
Well said, yes.
what would the Tibetan notion of a sacred text be?
Oh, so many. There are the sutras, which are regarded as the words of the Buddha. That's quite apocryphal, of course. They were written hundreds of years later. There are commentaries by various masters, which are highly revered. One of the great things about Buddhism is that the writings and the teachings of any contemporary master are regarded as having equal authority as the scriptures of the past, which is quite different from other religions, I believe.
What would make it sacred or holy, revered? Choose your adjective.
That what makes it revered, and that's the adjective I would choose, is that people have found these words resonating with them throughout the centuries.